Hello, yes, it's Joe here for Joyrider TV, coming live from Joyrider TV studios here in Vasiliki, Greece, where the time is 5:30. It's a Friday afternoon. If you're watching this later on, then hello. Great to have you on board. This session is being recorded live. So if you're not watching the live session, but you've got a question regarding your catamaran sailing, then by all means put it in the comments below and I will get back to you either in the comments if it's just a quick one, or if it's something slightly more involved, I will put your comment into next week's Q&A as a preloaded question and we'll take it from there. Sounds like a plan? Yes, I think so too. All right, so yeah, what's going down? All right, we've already got some people here in the live. We've got Luddite 90 straight in with a juicy question. Who asks, are the hulls on the Hobie Tiger strong enough for beaching? Now, if it's a sandy beach, I know the guys in Holland and Belgium, they're quite where they've got a lot of sandy beaches. As long as you make sure the dagger boards are out completely, yes, you can pull the boat up onto the beach, but they're not going to like it if you keep doing it again and again and again. What's going to happen is you're going to be grinding away the bottom of the hulls. They're certainly not as strong or as durable as something like a Hobie 16 or Dart 16 with the plastic hulls. The Tiger's got quite thin, lightweight hulls, which is not going to respond so well to pulling up the beach. And only if it is a very high quality sandy beach, if there's any sign of any rocks anywhere or small stones, then that's an absolute no for pulling a Tiger up the beach. But thanks for jumping in with that question. I know that some people in the past have, if we just imagine the bottom of the hull. Have I gone off the screen? It doesn't matter for this one. And there would be the daggerboard case there. The guys who have been pulling them up the beach and aren't quite so worried about the performance, they've taken actually a strip of material and stuck it on like this. The ones that I've seen, to be honest, I don't know if it was just extra gel coat, extra thick gel coat put there, or if it was actually fiberglass that was making a strip along the bottom of the hull. But that is the sort of thing that you're going to want to do if you are thinking of pulling your boat up the beach a lot. Yeah, if you are pulling the boat up the beach, dragging it up the beach at all, whatever type of boat it is, you want to be periodically checking the bottoms of your hulls. Because if you're doing it every day and you don't check, it's going to be quite a shock when perhaps you capsize and you see the bottom of your boat and it's like, oh, so that's where the water's coming from. Or, oh dear, we should have checked that a little bit more frequently. So there you go. That is what I'm saying about pulling the boat up the beach at this time. Hello, Alan. And Alan is in Guatemala. Nice to have you on board, Alan. Wow, we really are hitting the corners of the globe. We've got Gustavo on board. I believe that might even, is that Gustavo who is in Puerto Rico, who will be, who's currently, this is big news. Gustavo there is currently holding the top spot on the global speed stick. I don't know if this is news to him, but congratulations for that. As if you are the right Gustavo, I'm sure you are. All right, HJ. feeling happy. Join the live session. Yeah, great to have you on board. We've got Zach on board in Northeast Ohio. Thanks for tuning in. Good morning, indeed. Yasupano. We've got Patra on board where the juiciest of beers come from. And that's Panos, of course, who is famous for doing some testing with us here in Vasiliki Bay and is now the proud owner of a Top Cat. I hope that's all going well for you. We've got Benny on board in Sweden. Thanks for tuning in, Benny. Great to have you with us. We've got Lee in Macon, rhymes with bacon, Georgia. Thanks for tuning in. All right, we've got Valentine. Good news. Seems like I'm visiting Wildwind this summer. Great news. What a great choice. You are going to have an absolutely fantastic time. Look forward to seeing you here. We've got Stefano. Hi, Stefano. Greetings. Oh, Gustavo is happily at the top of the leaderboard, but he is thinking it might not be for long. Well, it depends on everybody else, whether perhaps there's any Kiwis. It's probably a bit late for the Kiwis, to be fair, who might fancy jumping out and seeing if they can smash in some big speeds, or perhaps anybody in Australia, in South Africa, perhaps any of the guys in Mauritius. They could be going out, having a look at some big speeds. Everybody is welcome to get involved. If anybody is watching from Wildwind, Mauritius, get your GPS on. If you've got a GoPro, I know some of you do now, go out with the GoPro, put the telemetry on, send me your results, get on the speed stick. We want to see it. All right, so Valentine says, what is the top speed on the speed stick? Gustavo responds with 20.7 knots. That is really cooking. Very impressive. We've got Holly on board. Hola. Holly, I believe, is in Oman. Nice to have you with us. We've got Johan in the Netherlands. Hi, Johan. Good to see you there. And then we got Mark and Janet in St. Mary's, Ohio. Stefano, can you answer if somebody sells some old sails for a Nacra 15? Okay, if you're watching this and you happen to have a Nacra 15, or more specifically, some sales for a Nacra 15 that you're selling, then get involved. Put it in the comments below or jump in on the live chat if you happen to be watching now, because Stefano is looking for some. Hi, Robin. We've got Robin there in Florida. Johan says the speed stick top speed is the same with or without the current tide. Yeah, with the speed stick competition, what I'm trying to do is make it as simple as possible. So if you are sailing in current or tide, then it's just whatever number it says on your GPS. I think the most common devices that people are using is, I think the most common is the watch GPS. A lot of Garmin's I've seen pictures of, or perhaps an app on the iPhone or on your mobile phone in a dry bag. Those would be the most popular. The next one would be if you're using a GoPro camera, which is a GoPro that's newer than the GoPro Hero 5, then that will give you your speed afterwards, as long as you've got the GPS function switched on. You can do that. Unfortunately, with the GoPro, you can only actually do that using the GoPro app on the phone to put the telemetry on, which is why I couldn't handle doing that, because my files are too juicy for my phone. So I started using telemetry overlay, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, but I would say, let's say with in reference to what about the tide, if here is your area of water. Let's say you're sailing in some sort of channel, like a big river, and the tide is going in this direction, and you are sailing also in the same direction, with the wind from the side. So we're beam reaching, flying a hull, we're whooping and cheering, very important, and we are absolutely loving it. Now, I think I haven't done much sailing in tide since I've started getting into doing these speed runs. But if the tide is, let's say, if the tide is pushing you forwards at, like, if it's a really strong tide, like 6 knots, then what that is going to do is, I don't think you're going to get a massive advantage in boat speed or speed over the ground with the tide there if you're on a speed run, because the water's moving forwards. Hold on, I'm thinking about this as we go. This might be a load of old rubbish, to be honest, but as the tide's pushing you forwards, is that going to take some of the power away from the boat? If anybody's on board from the science department, perhaps, I'm not going to go any further into that because I think I might get myself in trouble delving into a realm which I don't really know the science. But if anybody from the science department wants to send me a message to let me know, and we'll talk about it next week. But for now, there we go. All right. All right. Valentine says, I got a 23.5 last season. So I on top then. Now, unfortunately, Valentine, the 2021 speed stick has finished, and those speeds are going to be added to the all-time leaderboard. And the 2022 speed stick is currently being led by Gustavo with 20.7. If you were to send me a speed that you got in 2022, then I could add it to the speed stick. So there we go. We have to keep it in the now kind of thing, if you know what I mean. All right. We've got Reinhard on board. Hello. Great to have you with us. All right. So where was I? I was just here. Yes. So one thing that I have done this week, which may or may not be of interest, is that I've gone through the whole of the Joyrider TV YouTube channel, and I've basically taken down any videos that I don't feel have any relevance now, such as sort of like little updates from years ago, that kind of thing. I've taken down all of the biking videos as well. So I'm really trying to focus Joyrider TV just on the sailing and trying to sort of get rid of everything else that doesn't really fit with what it is that we're doing here. I have actually, here's a big announcement. I've just started a new YouTube channel called, I'm going to type this in, Biking with Joyrider TV. There it is. So if you like the biking videos, then I've taken what I thought was the best of them and put those on that channel. I've just been out today filming a new video for that. But if you like the biking videos, head over to Biking with Joyrider TV, subscribe, watch everything, hit the like button, that kind of thing, leave comments, because it's a brand new channel and it is quite shaky to get it off the ground. Anyway, back to what we're into. All right, we've got Zach with some science about the tide question. To best of my knowledge, in my powerboat, up or down the river, with or against the tide. Current GPS speed is over land. I've only noticed 1 mile per hour indifference on the GPS. Yeah, it's an interesting one, I feel. We'll have to look into this further. We've got Iron Horse on board. Hello, Iron Horse. In Berryville, what's VA? Is that Vermont? Would it be? Or is that Virginia? I don't know. My American geography is improving, but not the best. Okay. Technical question from Iron Horse. Any idea where I can find a new masthead sheave for a 70s Hobie 16? And that's in Virginia, by the way. I would suggest talking to the guys at Murray's. I think their website is just murrays.com, and they will certainly be able to point you in the right direction. The guys at Murray's hold some of a really good amount of stock for Hobies and any catamarans, and they're extremely knowledgeable as well and helpful. So I would head over to Murray's as my first port of call. Or of course, if you have got a Hobie dealer in the area, but I'm sure that they'll be able to steer you in the right direction. Not been able to find anyone. Yeah, there we go. All right, Robin says, we're still on the currents. Where I used to live, we had currents of up to 6 knots. On a cruising sailboat with a top hull speed of 5 knots, you could be going 11 knots with the current or 1 knot against it. Yeah, I did used to sail before I started many years ago, like 28 years ago. I used to sail on the east coast of England, and one of the rivers that I used to sail in did have very strong tide. And it is really quite bizarre sitting there flying a hull and only edging forwards against the land. Very strange. All right, Luddite 90 says, A-class catamaran robust enough for heavy waves and wind on Lake Michigan. Any A-classes in Michigan, please chime in. That's Bob in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Thanks. Yeah, I would. The A-class is a notoriously fragile boat, so it is a very good question. And I would say probably yes. I think when it comes to actually sailing the boat and going through waves and things, I would say an A-class probably could take it. But then going back to the pull it up the beach question, definitely not with the A-class, because those boats are so lightweight, built lightweight. They wouldn't respond well to being dragged up the beach. All right, Iron Horse says Hobie doesn't make them anymore, apparently. Okay, so what we're gonna be doing is how are we gonna do this? Perhaps get in touch with Hobie directly. I know that's perhaps not going to be if Murray say you can't get them. So what you're going to do is be on the lookout for a mast that you can take one off. That's not going to be easy. Sorry, I can't help you that much with that. But if you're still stuck in a couple of days, send me a message or an email and I'll put out a short video to the community to see if anybody can help with that. All right, we have got Rico in San Juan, oh no, not Rico, that's Puerto Rico. Oh, it's Dino Promo PR. All right, hello from San Juan, Puerto Rico. Thanks for all you do. Just starting to master sailing cats. I'm learning with Gustavo, my brother. So this is Gustavo, who is on top of the leaderboard. Great to have you on board. So I'm a bit confused. I'm coming in hot today. maybe I should try speaking a little bit more slowly. All right, Johan says, we had a difference of meaning at our club. What is a faster cat? One, the cat polished with boat wax. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, we did have, yeah, we had quite a difference of meaning. So the whole question about sailing in the tide wasn't a question about sailing in the tide in the first place, but the sailing in the tide question is a very interesting question. So I think we can be quite happy with our slight confusion there. But what Johan actually meant is what is quicker, and I'm going to have to put this to the science department as well, because I don't know the answer, is that a boat which is polished with wax or a cat which has been sanded with 800 grade sandpaper, or probably I'd even go to 1500 possibly there. So that's one for the science department. If anybody wants to jump in on that one, that would be great. We've got Telmo on board in Floripa, South Brazil. Great to have you with us. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you're having a good time. All right. Oh, we've got some guy from Wisconsin. How are the applications coming? Well, yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, one of our biggest hurdles at the moment. So if you hadn't seen, I put out a video looking for staff to come out and work here at Wildwind Sailing Holidays. Probably one of the best places to work if you're into catamaran sailing in the world. And unfortunately, at the moment, because of Brexit, and it's all been kind of, it's been edging towards things getting more finalized as the time has been going on. It's very difficult, or extremely difficult, for us to employ people here who don't have an EU passport. In the past, we were quite happy to employ people from anywhere and say, all right, if anybody comes down to the beach holding a clipboard, just say you're on holiday, just helping out, that kind of thing. But the fines that are on the table are massive. So most of the applications I've actually had come in have been from people in the UK, which we are working on it, finding some sort of solution. But unfortunately, at the moment, I can only sort of guarantee that I can employ people who have got an EU passport. So in short, how's the applications coming? There's a lot of applications coming in, but how many applications are coming in that I can say to, yes, this is who we want on the beach? Not so many at the moment. So there we go. We've got Chris in Texas. Morning, Chris. Great to have you on board. Yeah, we're talking about catamaran sailing here. Unfortunately, the USA passport also, it is very difficult for us, like basically for the rest of the world, anywhere outside of the EU, it becomes very difficult for us to employ people, and probably quite expensive as well. So that is the problem that we're having at the moment. So I've got some very good applications from people in the US and in South Africa as well, which would be fantastic if we could take them. But until we get some sort of clarity on how we would go about doing that, we're just on pause. All right, I'm going to go into some preloaded questions now. If you've got a spare finger, if you could just hit the like button while you're there, and that would be fantastic. All right, so the first of the preloaded questions this week comes from Loyal, who says, what is the tendency or probability of the Hobie 16 turning turtle, which means going completely upside down? And what are the pluses and minuses of adding a baby bob, a masthead float, to the top of the mast. All right, so the tendency of the boat to invert completely definitely depends on the way that you capsized. Because if you capsize and we're just drawing the capsized boat, I'm sure you probably saw that coming. If you capsized and the wind is blowing directly onto the bottom of the trampoline, then unless you're pretty quick getting around the boat and putting a bit of weight, just pulling against something. So if you've even got your weight out a little bit, even with the wind blowing directly onto the bottom of the trampoline, that should be enough to stop the boat from inverting. But sometimes when you capsize, what you find is capsizes are very often different. So you might capsize sideways, backwards, the pitch pole, but the boat will end up sitting at different in different directions to the wind. So this is the worst one for the inverting, with the wind blowing directly onto the bottom of the trampoline. So if that is happening, getting around to this position really does help. So the boat will invert quite easily if the wind is in the wrong direction without anybody preventing it from going over completely. Now, the baby bob, the masthead float. So let's go for the positives of the masthead float. So let's fit a masthead float. There we go. The first one is it is going to stop the boat from inverting. The only reason we're kind of going backwards and forwards, positives, negatives here. The only reason that inverting the boat is a negative thing is because if you're sailing in shallow water, you certainly don't want your mast going into the bottom, because if nothing else, you're going to get a load of whatever the seabed is constructed of getting all over the top of your mainsail and the top of your mast. It's going to be a real mess. But at worst, if your boat gets driven into the bottom like that, it'll make it near impossible to right the boat without doing some sort of pretty, I'd say, a level 4 maneuver. So that's the first one. You don't want your mast hitting the bottom. The masthead float is definitely going to stop that from happening. The next thing that it's going to stop is when you capsize. This is a very important safety point. When you capsize, if you end up, we've been through this in several videos, of course, in this position in the water where can I draw here? All right. What am I trying to do here? No. All right, we're going to leave that one. Yeah, so if you end up in this position and the boat does invert, it is possible to get stuck underneath the trampoline with the boat upside down. That is possibly one of the most dangerous things with catamaran sailing out of everything, is in the event of a capsize, getting stuck under the trampoline, most dangerous thing. So with the baby bob or the masthead float, that basically means that that is never going to happen. So this is going to massively make your boat safer from this, which is the most dangerous thing with catamaran sailing, is this. And it's not going to happen. So that is a big positive, big plus for the masthead float. Yeah. So it's basically, you're not going to get trapped under the bottom. You're not going to drive your mast into the bottom as well. And you're not going to have to spend more time pulling your boat upright from inverted. So there you go. I'd say those are the positive points for the masthead float, or for not inverting the boat at all. Also, inverting the boat, maybe you've got a slightly older boat and you might have a leaky mast. Now, a leaky mast, this is a real problem if you invert. If you invert the boat and water can get inside your mast, the water can fill up with mast pretty quickly. I'd say in about 10 minutes, the mast could have so much water in it that it's not actually possible to bring the boat back upright. So if you're suspicious that you've got a leaky mast, putting a masthead float on is a really quick fix for that, because the mast then is never going to go under the water. Boom, done. All right, so then those are the positive points of the masthead float. Well worth having. The negative points of the masthead float, the most significant one is if you capsize and the wind is blowing like it is in this picture, and perhaps you capsized because your trapeze wire broke and you're like over here in the water. If there's a masthead float on the boat can't invert, and it means the boat is going to go downwind very, very quickly, because it's going to be kind of floating on this hull and on the masthead float. There's nothing to slow the boat down, and it's going to go very quickly. This is why here at Wildwind, we made a decision not to fit masthead floats to our bigger boats, to the more performance boats, which we're using more when it's really windy, because we were worried that what was going to be more frequent than people, through what we thought is through education, we could stop people getting caught under the trampoline, and that's been going well. But what we felt, if we did fit the masthead floats, is the amount of man overboard separated from the catamaran would be greatly reduced. So we increased, sorry. So we'd be increasing that risk, and it wasn't worth it, because the sea is a big place. Finding someone at sea is not easy. If they're with the boat, of course, it's a lot easier. Yeah, so that is the main negative point for fitting a masthead float. The other one is, if you are going for your top speed, then it is going to slow you down a bit because of the windage at the top of the mast. It's going to make it slightly more difficult bringing the boat up from capsized, because we've just added, I don't know how heavy they are, it's probably about 3 kilos, I should think. We've added 3 kilos to the top of the mast, which, this is another one for the science department, which with the amount of leverage that 3 kilos has got, that's a lot. So it's going to be hard to pull that 3 kilos back upright. So there we go. I think that's pretty much talked about the masthead float, the baby bob. Now, somebody asked, where was it? Somebody asked how you bring the boat up. Oh, here we go. Iron Horse asked, while we're on the subject, how do you bring the boat up from inverted or turtled? There are some very good videos on Joyrider TV on this topic, incidentally. So what we want to do is, if the boat is upside down, so this is an upside down boat, what we want to do is get to the corner of the boat. It's very simple, actually. All right, in order of when we're doing things, the first thing that we're going to do when the boat's upside down is we're going to decide which way the wind is coming from. So generally it would be coming from one side or the other, but if it's coming directly from the front or the back, then we just need to make a decision which way we want the boat to go. And you might get it right, you might get it wrong, but it doesn't really matter. So what we're going to do, let's say the wind is coming from here. We're going to take the capsize writing line, pass it under this hull, and then we're going to get to the opposite corner of the boat. So wind's blowing from here, opposite corner is back here, and we're going to put all of the weight, all of the people on the boat at this back corner. What that's going to do is it's going to sink this corner of the boat. This corner of the boat is going to come out of the water, and then a combination of the wind getting under the trampoline and the buoyancy, the air in the mast, is then going to bring the boat up onto its side. If the wind was blowing from this direction, then we'd do the same thing, but we'd go up here so that we're lifting this corner of the boat. So we're getting the wind under that corner. There we go. So that is how you would bring the boat upright from inverted. And then as the boat comes upright, when it's quite obvious when it's going to start coming, you just move backwards or forwards along the hull so that you're getting to the center of the hull, so that when the boat settles on its side, you're sort of pretty close to the front beam where there's the most volume in the hulls. There we go. All right. Who else have we got on board? Lee in Macon. I found a couple of soft spots on the top of each hull on my Hobie 18. Is this something that can be fixed easily? Yeah, I think now that I've actually done it myself, it's not too bad. What I made a video about this as well. There's been a lot of videos. It was a good job. I took some of them down. So yeah, what we can do to fix these soft spots is injecting epoxy into the deck of the boat. So if this is our soft area, what we want to do is get some epoxy resin, and we want to get a syringe for the resin. And then if we've got an area of exactly this, which is soft, what we want to do is drill a hole down into the hull, but just so that it goes down as far as the foam. We don't want to go all the way through. So we have to be really very controlled with the drill. And we're going to make holes approximately, I would say, something like this. And what we can do also is, once we've gone down as far as the foam, we can just dig into the foam a bit with something pointy, like a very thin screwdriver would do it. Just dig into the foam a bit, and then what we'll do is we'll take our syringe, and if all is well, when we inject like this hole, we should start to see epoxy coming near to these other holes, or if not out of them. And then what's going to happen is we're then putting a layer of epoxy in there, which is going to stiffen that whole area up and stop that softness from spreading. I feel one of the big reasons why boats go soft is because of water remaining inside the hulls. So if you've got water inside your hulls, you do really need to get it out, because the water staying inside the hulls, that creates a lot of humidity inside, which can lead to these soft spots coming. And as you may have seen in, I think it was Show Us Your Cat episode 118, somebody's hull did snap in half. So definitely get it sorted out. There we go. All right, Tom, hello. Great to have you on board. What can you do if the boat does not want to turn against the wind by standing in the front after the capsize? Yeah, this is a problem, especially for the bigger boats, like the Formula 18s, the Tornadoes, that sort of thing. And what I've found helps the most is standing might not be enough, because there's a lot of volume in the bows and it's difficult to sink the bow of the boat enough to really get it to come round. So what you could actually do is get one of the team members to actually get in the water at the bow of the boat and drag off the bridle wire and effectively become a sea anchor at the front of the boat. That is what I would suggest. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, if you look at the wind direction, it might actually be favorable to go and stand at the back of the hull, sink the back of the hull, and then the wind will take the boat the other way. So if you're standing on the bow of the boat, you could, and it's not happening, you could think, right, should we go and try standing on the back of the hull and see how that turns out? Worth a go. That's been very helpful for me in the past anyway. Okay, Freedom 35. Okay, Freedom 35 has, if the spots aren't too bad and they don't make any sound, when you push them down, you can drill holes and fill them with epoxy. Okay, yeah, there we go. If it cracks when you push down the spots, the top layer of the fiberglass and foam need to be removed and filled back in. There we go. There's some clarity there. The tops do crack. Well, the cracking sounds like it's inside and the top surface is solid. All right, I think you guys have got it sorted out between you. All right, so moving in, we've got Thomas on board. Hi, Thomas. Great to have you with us. At this time, I've got quite a few preloaded questions still to go through. If you haven't yet hit the like button, if you could do that, that would be great. It just means that more people will get to see this rambling mess afterwards. I'm just going to take a short commercial break. And we're back. Okay, so the next preloaded question, here we go. And this one comes from Ron, who says he wants to tighten up his Hobie 16. What kind of glue or resin would you put on the pylons to make it stiffer? Yeah, I've heard this is a very popular thing to do, especially by the Australians. They're very keen on gluing their 16s together. So to me, it sounds like you might be asking for trouble a little bit, because that bit of movement between the hulls, it's kind of, that is taking some of the pressure out. Whereas if your boat is completely solid and you're loading your boat up with a lot of pressure to go fast, and between the pylons and the castings is, so we've got the pylon and the casting that goes on. If everyone can visualize that, that'd be the sidebar, and that'd be the hull. So the pylon goes down into the hull, where I believe it goes. On the boat I've got cut in half, which is quite an old one. It goes into like a big foam block, which is then kind of like in. But if this is totally solid, no movement at all, is there more of a risk that you might upset this arrangement inside the hull? And I'd say if your pylon gets movement inside the hull, that could well be terminal. So I would definitely be up for trying it. What to use? Epoxy resin, I believe, is what the Australians use. Perhaps some epoxy resin with a bit of a thickening agent in there, like some micro bubbles to make it a bit thicker so it fills in the gap. But what you can do, which is slightly less final, let's say, is you can take some plastic or some aluminium or something and cut it to the correct size. So this would come down like this. Apologies for the bad drawing. And you can put shims, we'll call these shims, put shims up inside here if your pylon or your casting has worn so much that there is a heck of a lot of play. Like when you lift one hull, if the other one stays on the floor, then perhaps that's too much play. So just you'd have to drop the mast, loosen the trampoline, take the bolts out, if there's a lot of play, it should be quite easy to take one of them up a little bit, push some plastic, like the sort of plastic packaging that you get when you buy many things, that's quite thick, very difficult to get into till you get the scissors out. Use some of that, pack up in there, and that will help you to take some of that play out of the boat there. All right. All right. Chris says, Joe, you're going to try to make Texas for the 50th. Yeah, it is looking at the schedule, Chris. I'm afraid it is looking unlikely that I will be in Texas early June. At the moment, what I'm looking at doing, because it's both practical and yeah, I think the practicalities of it, and it's more what I'm, let's say, more what I'm into, because is in early July there are the Formula 18 Europeans in Italy, and then there's 2 days after the Formula 18 Europeans, and then the Tornado Europeans start also in Italy. Now that just sounds to me a bit too convenient not to do. And I do need to be here a certain amount of the time. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be making it to the 50th anniversary Prindle Championships in Texas. But if you're in America, if you're in the States or Canada, and you've got a Prindle, or you know someone with a Prindle, or you're thinking of buying a Prindle, you really should be considering going to Texas at the start of June for this 50th anniversary of the Prindle catamarans. Any type of Prindle is allowed, and it's going to be a great competition. They're trying to get 50 boats along. I think they should exceed that nicely. Chris says, you got rum in the bottle this time. Maybe I should have had. All right, Thomas is in Vasiliki in 143 days. Nice. All right, Mark and Janet say regarding the old masthead sheave, I had one machined from aluminium from St. Pierre Incorporated in Michigan. Sent the old one to him and he copied it. All right, so there we go. Whoever it was with the masthead sheave, maybe have a bit of a chat with Mark and Janet there, or just get in touch with St. Pierre Inc. And there you go. All right, so next preloaded question. If you could hit the like button, that would be good. I won't go on about it anymore. Thanks. All right, so we've got Alan, who's in Guatemala, and he says, I am designing and will build a simple lightweight catamaran for sailing on the lake. This will be my first boat build. It seems, and this sounds right, the wider the hulls are apart, the bigger the sails can be without the fear of capsizing. And bigger sails means that you can sail faster. That is definitely a great way of looking at it. Yeah, I would definitely agree with all of that. Wider boat, bigger sails, boat goes faster. All right, the one thing that we have to, let's say we've already acknowledged that if we're putting more load into the boat is going to have to be stronger. I think that we'll just take that as read. But what we also have to consider is as we make the boat wider, with those extra loads, we need to make sure we've got enough buoyancy, enough volume in the hulls to be able to handle that amount of power. So one example is like the Phantom, the foiling Phantom is 8. This is, I think it's one of the only boats which is, I'm not going to draw it actually, which is 18 feet, 5.5 meters long and 3 meters wide. So this has got a heck of a ratio width to length. But because it's foiling, the volume isn't such an issue. Whereas I think if you had an 18-foot boat with a pretty normal looking set of hulls, you might find as soon as you start going, the leeward hull can't take that amount of pressure. So I think the actual design of the shape of the hull is definitely going to be a factor. But how wide can you go? Yeah, so I think an 18-foot boat with the right amount of volume could be 3 meters wide. And then if you go for a longer hull, you could perhaps go beyond 3 meters wide to make a faster boat. But either way, what we want is to see that bad boy when you've finished it, and that would be very exciting. All right, we've got Ryan in Maui. Great to have you on board with us. Thanks for tuning in. All right, Chris says we've already got 25 boats registered for the Prindle event. Yeah, so it really is taking off already. I think as we get closer, of course, more people are going to enter. Great stuff. All right, next preloaded question is from Eggy. Oh, Eggy's got a question on anchors. And he says, what weight would you recommend for a Hobie 16 so it'd be safe to leave the boat behind for some time? Yeah, I'd be quite wary leaving something like a 16 at anchor for some time, unless you were felt fairly, what's the word? Safe that there wasn't going to be much wind and the sea was, or the water was going to stay pretty flat. There is quite a large compromise with the anchor, which is what can we carry on the boat, but then how much can that anchor actually hold? So if we were just going day sailing and we wanted to anchor the boat off a beach, maybe it was a stony beach, but the seabed is sandy, so it's nice for the anchor. So we couldn't pull the boat onto the beach, but we wanted to sit on the beach, maybe do a bit of snorkeling, maybe have a bit of lunch, that kind of thing. Then you could use a folding grapnel anchor, but the folding grapnel wouldn't be any good for leaving the boat for an extended period of time because it doesn't hold as securely. The best one, as far as I would go for, is what's called a fluke, which is an anchor that would look like this. All right, I've actually got a picture one here. I did a bit of preparation. That's why I'm looking over here. So that would go like that, like that, like that. This is going ever so well, by the way. I hope everyone's having a lovely time. Like that, and then yeah, so this fluke anchor is much like the Lumar anchor that we tested here, which really does dig in like an absolute bad boy. And this is what's being recommended for boats under 21 feet. So that surely has got to be what we're looking at. Now, these do sit flat, so it's not out of the question to carry one on the boat, but you would want to have it in some sort of container because these points can be pretty pointy, which could make a bit of a mess of your trampoline. So something to consider there. So yeah, that is what I'd say. You also should be considering what the seabed is made of. You want something soft like sand, mud, clay, something like that, where the anchor is going to hold much better. But if you're looking at anchoring in the same spot, then you could consider, if it's allowed, putting something in the water like we do, where we actually put a mooring in, which will always be there with a buoy on it. And then it's always there and it's reliable. But I wouldn't fancy leaving a catamaran like the ones that we're talking about on the water for more than like one night, and then you'd want to take it in. Otherwise, you'll start getting stuff growing on the hull, and we're inviting more softness of the hull that way. Okay. All right. No further questions, please. We've been going almost an hour, and I've still got some preloaded questions. So I'll just finish off the preloaded questions. So this next one comes from Frank. This is actually following on from last week's chat about pulling the Traveller in halfway to go for a jibe when it's windy. Hello, Frank. So if you're going for a jibe when it's windy, Frank asks, as well as bringing the Traveller in halfway. So just to recap, windy jibe procedure, get on a proper catamaran sailor's broad reach. So if these are our bridle wires, we want the apparent wind flying straight across the boat like that. So these are our telltales on the bridle wires. We want to be on the right course to start with. We want to, if there's some gusts around, we take a gust. When we take that gust, we take the boat more downwind with that gust, which will keep the apparent wind the same, but it will reduce the jibing angle, which means there's going to be less pressure in the rig when it comes across. But once we've bore away in that gust, the other thing that we want to do is bring the Traveller into about halfway. By doing that, what it means is the mainsail will go across much earlier, which means the boat doesn't have as much of a chance to slow down. And the way that we're getting round the windy jibe without sticking the nose in is by going through the jibe right up until when the sail comes across with as much boat speed as possible. More boat speed means less pressure in the rig. That's what we're looking for. All right. But do you need to bring the main sheet in as well? No, because if you bring the main sheet in as well, then there's the chance that you're going to oversheet the mainsail and you're actually going to slow things down. I would keep it loose so you've then got that bit of suspension when the sail goes across. All right. So no further questions, please, in the live chat. Yeah, I'm still going to finish all the preloaded ones. All right. So Gustavo, currently on top of the leaderboard in Puerto Rico, has got a leaking hull. Okay, I'm sure this is a problem that many people have encountered at some point. He said he's already replaced the bung and the seal on the bung, and he's looked everywhere. There's no cracks in the hull, no visible signs where water could get in. So what would I suggest there? As well as the bung being worn, it could actually be the bung housing. The bit the bung screws into might be worn. If your boat's been used from a sandy beach a lot and the bung has been taken out and put in when there is a chance of sand getting on the thread, that sand could have cut away or worn away either the thread on the bung or on the bung housing. So that is another potential entry point for the water. So if you really are trying to eliminate leaky hull, I would certainly consider changing the bung housings as well. And when you change the bung housings, of course, that's a great opportunity to reseal those fittings on the hulls as well. Again, like Gustavo said, maybe it's the rudder fittings, the gudgeons on the back of the boats, because that's actually the only other place where water could get in apart from around the pylons. And if the pylons are sealed at the top, then those are your places. I think you have found where there you are. There you are. And Gustavo's second part of the question is he had a broken, all right, this is a good one. Let's just, I'm going to paraphrase this. So Gustavo's bottom batten protector. So the batten pocket protector is, you've got your batten pocket. If this is the mast, these batten pockets are pretty chunky on this one. All right. And then at the front of the batten pocket, you've got a plastic cap, which, sorry, that should be around that way, which stops the batten from poking through the sail and causing damage. Now, Gustavo has got a broken one of these protectors. And of course, he needs to get a new one on there and perhaps even have a sail repair done where the batten has gone through the sail a bit. But he asks, can he sail the boat with the batten taken out? Is sailing the boat with that batten missing going to damage the sail? So what I would say is it depends on how much wind you're looking at. It's not going to damage the sail if you go out in quite light winds and you don't try sheeting in too hard. All right, if we look at the shape of the sail, all right, and so Gustavo says it's the bottom batten that is broken, which which means if we take it out, then the shape at the bottom of the sail is going to be a mess. But is it likely to damage the sail? If it's light winds, you don't sheet in too hard, I'd say it's not going to damage the sail. Some battens have got a bigger effect than other ones, like because the purpose of the batten, as well as putting shape into the sail, is supporting the leech. So if we lost this batten, for example, we take a straight line between this batten and that batten, all of this bit of sailcloth here would just fold around the back and it would not be very nice at all. But you could sail with it. Again, light winds, take it easy. So there you go, Gustavo. I think we've got Mark and Janet with another suggestion for the leak. They say check seals and air vents on the pylons. Air vents are in the front pylons under the crossbars. All right, so I'm just going to finish with the questions that we've got. No further questions, please. So we've got Nicholas in France. Great to have you with us, Nicholas. Thank you for tuning in. He says, on lots of your videos, particularly around the capsize, I see how easily you, I assume what you're saying there is you get on board after writing it. Not me. Does this come from me, or does the school catamaran have a higher waterline? Yeah, it might be the type of boat. Some boats do sit a lot higher in the water, like the Hobie 16, which we talk about quite a lot on Joyrider TV, is possibly one of the easier boats to get on board because the hull sits quite low down. So it's not much of a step to get out of the water. But a boat like, you might be using something like a Getaway or a Dart 16, something like that, where you've got a lot higher hull, which does become quite difficult to get back onto. Two practical suggestions here. Oh, he says it's a Hobie Cat 14 in this case. The Hobie 14 should be reasonably easy to get onto, but if it's not, any boat, two things you can do is, how should we illustrate this? All right, front beam, we've got the mast. We've got some hulls. All right, we've got the dolphin striker. Bit of that as well. All right, so the first thing that you can do, well, it doesn't matter which one actually. In fact, I'd say the first one to try is, you've got your trapeze line here, trapeze handle. If you can, when you're in the water in this sort of position, if you can reach and grab the trapeze line, grab hold of the trapeze handle, it's going to be higher up, which is going to give you better leverage for pulling yourself up onto the boat. So what I do is use the trapeze line for pulling yourself up, and then try to get your foot kind of in here. And then from there, it should be much easier than just to get onto this bow from that position. If your trapeze wire sits quite far back, then what you could do is use what I call the Stefan method, which is, how can we illustrate this? Where the trapeze line goes into, well, wherever it goes, whether it's to the hull or into the trampoline, just get a small ring, put it around the bottom of the elastic. Let's do a different color. Like that. And then from that ring, tie a piece of elastic which goes forwards somehow, just so to a place forwards where you're going to be able to get hold of it. You could just have one piece for each side, but what we've done actually on our ones is we've got a piece of elastic that goes forwards. It then goes to the other side and onto the trapeze line on the other side. And that means that what we can do, if we're capsized, we want to get onto the boat, we can grab hold of that elastic, pull it, that pulls the trapeze wire so that we can get hold of it. And then we can grab hold of it, makes it a lot easier to get onto the boat. The other thing you can do to make it easier to get onto your boat is you've got your righting line, which has already been deployed. So this will have gone over this hull, round this hull, and it'll just be flapping around in the water under this hull. What you could do, pull this righting line tight, put it around the dolphin striker again. So really crank it on, put a load of turns around the dolphin striker, tie it off with a knot, your choice of knot. And then you've got a step where you can put your foot, especially if you've got some knots in the righting line. Then you just put your foot on the rope. You've got a step to help you get on. There we go. That is what I would suggest in that situation. Okay, we've got halbification. Hi, how do you make your moorings? All right, good question. What we use, and the more I think about it, it doesn't sound very environmentally friendly, but we do take them out of the water at the end of the season. We don't just put more and more into the water each year. We take, can we draw it? Yes, I'm sure we can, because we've got these skills. We take a car tire, old one, and then there's a few ways we could do it. What we've done in the past is we've put a piece of bar through the car tire like that, and then with some chain, which the bar goes through, we then fill the car tire with concrete, and then that is the weight for our mooring. And then from there, we then have a rope which goes to a buoy, and then we have a carabiner clip on the end of the rope. And of course, this length wants to be probably more than double the depth of the water, because you don't want it pulling up, you want it pulling sideways. And then what we do in addition to that is on the bridle wires of the boat, bridle wires forestay, is we just put a loop of rope like that. So when we're hooking our boats on, we'll hook it onto the bridle wire, but through the rope, so that then the mooring stays in the middle of the boat, which holds it straight much nicer than going to either of the bows. Or what doesn't work at all is to go onto the dolphin striker, because if you attach your mooring onto the dolphin striker, the boat will just spin round, which you don't want. Yeah, of course, there's I think we have actually changed our method here in the past. And what we do now is, instead of the chain, because this chain's pretty expensive, is what we do is, before we fill the tire with concrete, we put a piece of like hose pipe going down through the middle and out the other side, making a hole that goes through. We then put the rope all the way through, and we tie a big knot in the bottom end, and then there we are. And then we just need to make sure that this gets bedded in to the seabed nicely. So we've got sand where we put our moorings. So what we do is we use a wafting technique where you could just waft with your foot on the sand, and the sand goes away very easily, creating a divot under the, so it would be, there's the seabed, and we've created a divot like this under the mooring. And then that creates a bit of suction. And then over a couple of weeks, the mooring gets sucked down, and it doesn't take long at all for this tire to be very well bedded in. So it's very secure. There you go. All right. So we are coming towards the end of the session. Thanks very much for joining us today. Don't forget to check out Biking with Joyrider TV, my new YouTube channel, which means no more biking on Joyrider TV. So we're keeping it a bit more focused over here. All right. So Gustavo says on the anchor question, look at Fortress anchor kits, foldable anchors. Very nice. Stick Daring says, do you not find the beard irritates you with salt water? No, not at all. In fact, no. What I like about the beard, as well as it's very popular these days to own a beard if you're a gentleman, is the sun protection. I use much less sun cream. I don't have a very good complexion for the sun, but the beard does remove some of that surface area. But no problems there. All right, Gustavo says, thanks, Dr. Joe. That means I can sail tomorrow. Yes, but just don't sheet in too hard, and keep an eye on it as well. All right, Johan says, try my famous rope trick. Show us your cat. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's who Johan is. Yes. Yeah, for getting onto the boat, check out, if Johan's right there, episode 110 of Show Us Your Cat, where Johan's made a really nice system for getting back onto the boat. Very nice. Oh, 111 episode. All right. You're very welcome, Nicholas. Glad to help. All right, Mark and Janet, hull vent tubes are in front pylons, little tube in center of pylon. Check the seals and check the tube inside the pylon for possible leakage. All right, nice one. Well, there we go. I think that is all that we have got time for. And thank you very much for tuning in. It's been very lively today. I think you will agree. If you could hit the like button before you leave. Otherwise, we've got Show Us Your Cat this Sunday. Very exciting, the return of Show Us Your Cat. Otherwise, I'll see about, I don't know what I've got on the list at the moment for videos. I think probably my next task is to do this speed stick all-time leaderboard joint with last year's leaderboard, so that we've got a massive leaderboard. Perhaps that should be my next big job for Joyrider TV. But thanks very much, and I'll see you soon with some more. And thanks very much. Thanks for coming. It's been a great pleasure. And thanks for coming. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.